What a fellowship, what a ride, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning on Jesus, leaning on Jesus, safe and secure from all of found my Lord, and He is mine. He won me by His love. I'll serve Him all my years of time, and dwell with Him above. His yoke is easy, His burden is light. I found it so, I found it so. His service is my sweetest delight. His blessings ever flow. I tried the road of sin and found His prospects all deceived. I proved the Lord and joys of heaven more than I could believe. His yoke is easy, His burden is light. I found it so, I found it so. His service is my sweetest delight. His blessings ever flow. Zion's call sweetly rings over land and sea, giving us the new realms above. While the light on the road shines for you and me, let us listen to the call of love. Zion's call is ringing, ringing, coming from the throne above. While we hear it ringing, ringing, let us heed the call of the road to the goal. Where His dream must bear, but we have help from realms above. We receive courage too when we kneel in prayer. Let us listen to the call of love. Zion's call is ringing, ringing, coming from the throne above. While we hear it ringing, ringing, let us heed the call of love. While we tarry below, there is work to do, and our strength cometh from above. As we labor and wait, we must all be true. Let us listen to the call of love. Zion's call is ringing, ringing, coming from the throne above. While we hear it ringing, ringing, let us heed the call of love.
Testing. He found it. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Riverchase. I think I know everybody sitting in here except for maybe one or two. And if I know you and don't know your name, don't feel bad about it. Sometimes I have trouble remembering my own name, but that's okay. We'll get past all of that. So I can make you this one promise. It will not get up to 110 to 120 decibels like it was this past Wednesday night. And how do I know that it got to that range? Frank Wampole, the safety guy, had his phone out. When they were screaming, they were no longer singing. We were down to screaming booster. And poor old me, even as deaf as I am, sitting up here on the front row, was hurting. I was ready for all of that to be over. Great week last week. Great to see the kids doing those kind of things, and even better to see the adults be able to participate. So tonight, so if I told you that tonight's parable was about enough, where would the first place you would go to be? Nobody has a good answer for that one, do they? If I told you that tonight's parable was about barns, where would you go then? Makes it a little bit easier, doesn't it? So I will do what to my barns? Tear them down and build bigger. All right, this works better if y'all speak up, okay? Because I'm that guy that has to have, hey, coach, haven't seen you in forever. All right, sorry. Squirrel number one of the night. There'll be more of them. So tonight's parable is enough. Do we live in a country? Well, wait, before we get there, because it's going to be really good. I just feel it. This is a good story about enough. That's my grandson last Saturday evening, I think, or may have been Sunday evening in Destin. And what's that he's got in his hand? An ice cream that's as big as his head, right? Okay, so it's a little warm outside, and this is about 2 minutes in. Do you think he's winning or keeping up with the ice cream at this point? No, not at all. By the way, grandchildren are the best. And then we get a little bit deeper in it. Now you can see that he's almost in a sugar coma, but he's not giving up. And then when he finally gets through, this is what we get. Yeah. Grandma, or Weesey as they call her, worked on those pants for quite a while and got him cleaned up. Grandchildren are a great deal of fun. A couple of quick things before we get started. Today's June 21st, 7 days away from Flag Day, 7 days away from my birthday, right? And many of you remembered it because we sang to me in the in the gym. And we also sang to Lou, Sue, Kimberly, Bob, and Asher Norris, the 6-year-old. So based on my seriously unscientific calculation, there is a 98.7% chance that if you were born on June 14th, you're a Christian. I had to go with something, right? Happy birthday to all of my friends that have a birthday. I don't know that I've ever seen 6 in the same church on the same day. So good for us. It was a good day. All right, so here we are. We're, what is today? The 21st. What do you know about the 21st? And what does the summer solstice mean? It means that this lesson is going to be long. I got to preach till the lights go out, right? So, Paul and Eutychus, I hope nobody's sitting on the ledge up there. All right, so we're in good shape. All right, so let's talk about enough. Do we live in a country that has enough? Do we?
We do, but we don't think we do.
We're seriously in pursuit of more all the time, each and every one of us. If you look at these, if you look at all of this wonderful stuff and you start talking about enough, where do you reach the limit of enough? Where is the limit of enough? How much does it take to get enough? If you listen to the TV, how many of you today were sad that the UPS truck didn't show up at your house and deliver something from Amazon? I know you were. I know you're out there because I'm that same way. If I don't get something from Amazon, I'm not going to say anything, Michelle. I promise. If you look at it, we're in that instant society where somebody wants something all the time, right? And when we get that something, is it enough? No. There's always the next thing. Is that enough? No, it's not. And so what do we keep doing? Where do we put our focus? Here in the U.S., I'm not talking about, how many of you have been to a third world country? Anything like it is here? How many of you made your kids, when they were in the teen group, go to a third world country? And what was your reasoning behind doing it? I wanted my children, just the same as you did, I wanted my children to see just exactly how well they lived, how nice they had things. And my kids were not, our kids. She's still with me. Let me introduce you to my first wife over here. By the way, she's the first wife of almost 38 years. And between the two of us, it's squirrel number 2, between the two of us, there's only one of us that has forgotten the anniversary. And I'm not going to go into that. But it wasn't me. Okay, so So when you start talking about enough, when you look at enough, and when you talk about us and having enough, it seems to me that as a country, we are always after the next thing. I had those girls go to that third world country so that they could understand just how well they had it. I hope that you've had an opportunity to see that in your life and understand that we are rich. We are blessed in this country. I have never gone a day in this life that I was truly hungry, like I've seen some kids in third world countries. Never a day. And we still complain about, do we have enough? When you look at this and you say, if you look at the distribution of wealth, this is 2019, it's the latest one that I could come up with. The United States has $106 trillion, $106 trillion of wealth. Is that a lot? That's just a skosh past a whole bunch, right? $106 trillion, followed closely by China. I wouldn't say closely, but a little bit better than half. In China of almost $64 trillion. Do we live in a world that has enough? Do we as Christians believe that we have enough? And I look at you and I tell you, everything that comes at you on the TV is, no, you don't have enough of this. You need more of this particular thing, you need more of that particular thing, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Are we material? I went to lunch with a young lady several years ago, and we were talking about some of the things that we do for fun. And she finally looked at me, and and it wasn't just me, there were several of us around the table. She said, "You guys are very material." How do you think I felt on that one? She's not my sales lady anymore, but she had a point. And I said to myself, are we really that material? Are we focused on things of this life, or are we focused on things of the next life? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. When you look at the world map of billionaires, this is 2020, 614 billionaires in the U.S., 614. Is that a lot? How many would that tell you that would be millionaires? Be quite a few. How many of you think that the rest of the world has that kind of money? China running a close second with 300, well, again, better than second. No, they're still second. Better than half of what we have at 388. Did anybody have any idea that China had 388 billionaires? I didn't. I didn't think about it. When I was a kid, we always talked about if I had $1 billion from the day that Christ died, I could spend $1,000 a day and still have money left. I did the math on it, and I did it from the turn of the first century, and from the turn of the first century until today, you could spend $1,354 a day and still have money left. Is that a lot of money? When you look at it and you say, how many billionaires there are, how much do you really need? It's the question always comes to you, how much do you really need? How much does God want me to have? Is money a problem?
The love is.
The love of money is certainly a problem. Was it a problem for Abraham? No. Was he wealthy? Obviously, he was very wealthy. How about Boaz? Do we really know that Boaz had a great wealth? No, we don't know that, but what we do know is that he had enough wealth to take care of Ruth and several others that were with him. He was talked about as a wealthy man. How about David and Solomon? Did they have wealth? Just a little bit of wealth? No, not at all. When you look at when you go through some of these studies about the temple and the things that were put in the temple and the amount of gold used in the temple, you know for a fact that there was quite a bit of money. in both of them? Did both of them use their money correctly? Did they both run into trouble? Was that trouble money related? I can't say that it was, but I can tell you that they had a great deal. They had a great deal of wealth. What about Nehemiah? How many of you want the bumper sticker that says Nehemiah for president? Think about it. What did he do? He went into a country, city. We'll call him governor, mayor, whatever you want to do. He went into a city, and what did he do? This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and here's what we're going to do to fix it. I'm going to help you fix this. Did he do it himself? No, but he spent a great deal of time teaching everybody else what they needed to be doing. Did Nehemiah know how to manage wealth? He took a lot of, he quit taking money for doing certain things. That's how he straightened out some of the government. He set the example. Do we as Christians need to be setting the example? Each and every day, it's our job to set the example. How about Job? The main thing that I remember about Job is that he had 7,000 sheep. Is that a lot? Seems to me that 15 or 20 sheep would be a lot. A lot of stink for sure. But 7,000? Did Job have wealth? Did Job manage his wealth correctly? Who did Job give credit to for his wealth? I see a lot of head nods out there. I see some lips moving. But tell me, did Job have wealth? Yes. Did Job use that wealth correctly? Every day he used it. Even when you thought that he wouldn't use it correctly, what did he do? He stayed the course. Didn't matter. His focus was not on his wealth. His focus was on serving God. That's what he did. Could we learn something from that? And is money a problem? Well, for this list of people, it's not necessarily a problem. What about when we go a little bit further? What about Joel and, somebody pronounce that name for me. Is it Abiah? Abiah, I got it right? Ooh, I should do a little hula dance there. Okay, so Joel and Abiah, who are they? Samuel's sons. And what were they? Samuel appointed them as what? He appointed them as judges, and what did they do? Bad stuff. They were criminal. They were criminal in their judgeships. And how is it that you can be criminal in your judgeship? Bribes, you take bribes, you do. I watched the news this evening talking about one of our Supreme Court justices going out with whether this is true or not, and I don't, I put almost zero faith in the news that you have to filter everything that you hear. But it doesn't matter. They had a Supreme Court justice that went with a billionaire on a trip to Alaska in 2008, didn't pay a dime for it, according to them. And again, this is just what I heard. I'm repeating what I heard. And let me ask you this. That's a judge, right? What kind of example does that set for the rest of us that are sitting out there watching? Whether he did or he didn't, looks are not so good. Joel and Abiah. Did Eli appoint his sons as judges? Did Eli have trouble with his sons? Yes, he absolutely did. So what does that tell you about the father-son relationship? Doesn't necessarily matter how good it doesn't matter how good the father is. The sons are not always going to follow in that course. What about Achan and Jericho? What did he do wrong? He buried the treasure, right? What did God tell him to do? Wipe it out. Destroy it. Don't want any of it to be left. Don't care what it is. Don't care how good it looks. Wipe it out. What did Achan do? And then you all know what he did. He buried it inside his tent. And then how did that turn out for him? Not too good, right? How many of them got killed in his family? And it wasn't just his immediate family either that got it. Anybody that was related to Achan pretty much got taken out. What about Ananias and Sapphira? Did money matter to them? Obviously, it mattered a little bit more to them than telling the truth. What about the rich young ruler? What was he told to do? Go and sell, right? Go and sell and give to the poor, right? What about Zacchaeus? Is he rated on the good list or the bad list? Depends on what time you caught him, right? Before he knew Jesus, did he rate on the good list? No. After he knew Jesus, what did he do? He paid him back half again. By the way, I used that term to a vendor the other day, and they looked at me like I had 7 eyes. What does half again mean to you, Dwayne? Yeah, 150%, right? I've heard half again all my life. I guess I'm just country and didn't know it. Or I guess I did know it. But Zacchaeus, he caught up, right? He made things right. He realized at that point in his life that wealth was no longer about material things here on this earth. And so he made things right. What about Felix? Sought a bribe from Paul. Not necessarily a religious man, right? Not a Christian anyway. And he sought money from Paul through a bribe. What about this guy? What do you know about him? Now I show you all these people, and I look at it, and I want to ask you this one question. Is money a problem? Stop and ask yourself, is money a problem? Okay. Did God know that we would have trouble with money, wealth, material things? Did he? If he didn't, why did he spend all of this time showing us what these people did right with their wealth and then what these people did wrong with their wealth? Why would he spend that kind of time? The scriptures are replete with all of the things that talk about how people use money in different places, and then God always spends time telling you either here's where they went wrong or here's how they did it correctly. And what's the answer for you? You want to be on the correctly side. And so, with all of that, we look at Proverbs 8, 10, and 11. Choose my instruction instead of silver, knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is more precious than rubies, and nothing you desire can compare with her. What does that tell you about wealth? If he's talking about wealth in Proverbs, what do you know? We've looked at multiple different people in the Old Testament that had wealth and used wealth correctly. We've talked about people that did not use their wealth correctly, but all of them are used for us as examples. When we talk about wealth management, Leviticus chapter 25 tells you how to take care of family. Deuteronomy 15, how to be generous with all of your money. Deuteronomy 24, rules for creditors. Psalm 37, the correct way to manage wealth. Does money matter? Does your use of money matter? How you use it, what you do with it, does it make a difference? Absolutely it does. Psalms 112 is the generosity of the righteous is the same as the generosity of the Lord. That's the best equation that I can give you in regard to how it is that you should do wealth management. If you are free with your money, then you're doing what the Lord wants you to do. If you're wise, I should probably put a caveat in that. If you are wisely free with your money, then you will be rewarded for doing these things. So, did God think money and wealth might be a problem for us? If he didn't, then I'm just kind of sitting here wondering, so why did he spend all that time telling us? So to me, it obviously matters. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, said in Luke chapter 12. So when we get to Luke chapter 12, and you look at the barns, how did this whole story start? There were so many of them gathered in the same place that they were beginning, and why were they all gathered in the same place? What was their goal? They wanted to hear Jesus speak, and so they started to trample on each other. And then you got Jesus continuing to talk to him, and he says, don't be like the Pharisees. How many of you know that the book of Matthew is probably my favorite? The heart of the book of Matthew is Jesus repeatedly telling you how not to be like a Pharisee. And then I look at that and I say, could I substitute some of the things that I've done for Jesus is telling me through telling about the Pharisees what I should not be doing? Absolutely I can. And I can look at it and I can say, well, Adam, you haven't always nailed that one, but you're working on it. So we're work in progress. Don't be like the Pharisees. Don't worry about men that can kill you. Worry about the God of the heavens and the earth that can kill you. Fear him because he can cast you into hell. Don't fear men who can kill you. Acknowledge God in public. Could we learn something from that? If you look at all of this stuff, and then he finally tells them that blasphemy will not be tolerated. Is this a lightweight conversation? Is this something that people, obviously Jesus had a way of saying it so that people understood what he was talking about and wanted to be with him while he was doing that talking. But did he ever back off of what he came here to say? Did Jesus ever back down? How many of you think you could have stood on, how many of you think you could have been nailed to a cross and looked at the people in the crowd in front of you and said, forgive them for they don't know what they're doing? I'm pretty sure I'm not that guy, right? I can try hard, but I'm pretty sure I'm not that guy. When you look at Jesus and you look at his teachings and you look at the things that he did he ever back down? Right was right. Right was right. And it always was. And it always will be. So, are these weighty conversations that he's giving to this crowd? Yes, they are. They're things that the people needed to hear, and they were things that were important to him and important for him to pass on to a generation of prospective Christians. And then we get into the story in Luke 12:13 through 21. Someone in the crowd said to him, "Teacher, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me." Jesus replied, "Man, who appointed me judge or arbiter between you?" Then he said to them, "Watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions." What do you think I would say would be the key to that entire subset of verses that we're going to pay attention to? Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. Now, go back and apply that to all those things, the first 3 or 4 slides that I started with, talking about the wealth in the U.S., the wealth that we have here in Shelby County, one of the wealthiest counties in the state of Alabama. And I ask you again, does wealth matter? Did it matter to God how you used your wealth? Absolutely it did. And if you watch this, he tells you in that short little bit of that phrase there, life does not consist in an abundance of possessions. So where does it exist? It's a life with God. It's got to. It's got to be a life with God. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, "What shall I do? I have no place to store my crops." Then he said, "This is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. And I will say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry." But God said, "You fool. This very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself?" And then he goes on to say, "This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God." Do I really need to explain a whole lot more? One of the most succinct parables that there is. What did man do? From a man perspective, he was thinking about what and who and where did he go wrong? Who was the credit owed to for all the things that he had? God. And what could he have done with all of that excess grain, excess corn, excess, I don't know what it was what he was growing? What could he have done? He could have made an impact, right? Is wealth a problem? Not if it's stored in the correct thought process. Not if it's used in the correct thought process. In the midst of a very heavy conversation, and yes, I looked that word up, and it is in the Urban Dictionary, but it says some idiot asked Jesus to resolve a family dispute. How many of you use the word idiot in your life? Yeah, okay. Evidently, I was called an idiot for about the first 10 or 15 years of my life. It still happens, but some idiot says, hey, you're such a smart man, I want you to resolve this dispute. And what does Jesus say to him? Man, and then some interpretations of that are friend, who made me the arbiter? Who made me the guy that should, what do earthly courts, what are they here for, brother? I'm not talking about an earthly court. I'm talking about a heavenly court. So why did this guy do this? He was focused on the material. He was focused on the here and now, and what was Jesus trying to get him to focus on? Come with me, brother. Let's think about what we can do with our wealth so that more can join us, so that we can take it to other people. And all he could think about is, how do I get my share of the inheritance? Does inheritance come up more than once in Jesus' parable? Yeah, several times. And what does inheritance typically revolve around? Money, right? Money. It's all about the use of money. Jesus offers this response. Man, friend, listen to me. I'm not going to do what you're asking me to do, but I'm going to help you understand why what you're asking me to do is not what I'm about. But I am going to tell you what I am about, and I'll show you how to use it. So, does Jesus know our heart? Does Jesus know your heart? Does Jesus know everything you do before you're going to do it? Yes, absolutely. We believe that, right? We have to believe it. Has he proven it? Time and time again. Does he prove it in his word? And how many times do we do the same? Mama said I couldn't use the word stupid, so how many times do we do the same thing over and over and over again? And because we're idiots, we seem to hit that same groove time and time again. And you ask yourself, why? I'm human, right? Am I going to be human until I leave the face of this earth? Absolutely I am. What's my goal? If you train me the right way, and if you how many of you believe you're still a work in progress? This is a hand-raising event, okay? Are you still a work in progress? I am. Every day. Do I mess it up? Every day. There's no question that I mess things up. Every day. I mess things up talking to my wife. Just about every day. I see Diana laughing at me. She's been there. And I prove it sometimes. I don't even have to be called one. I look at this stuff and I say, it's not just happening to me at home. It happens to me at work. It happens to me in church. It happens to me when I'm dealing. And what is my constant goal? I think one of the reasons that God slows our brain down when we get to a certain age, which I'm quickly approaching based on the birthday last week, he slows us down. And what does that slow down do? Gives you time to think. Should we be thinking before we're talking? I always heard it all throughout my young life. That he gave you how many ears and how many mouths, and how many of us learned to do that? Adam has not learned yet. He's working on it though. I'm a work in progress. Do we ever transform from a work in progress? I don't think we'll ever be complete. but I've known some men in my life, men and ladies, sorry. I've known people in my life that I felt like, isn't it fun to go to, and fun is a terrible way to start this statement, but isn't it fun to go to a funeral when you know they've won? It absolutely is. And I'm not sure that fun is the right word to use, but it's the only one I can come up with right now. But I've been to several of those, and how do I feel when I walk away? He or she won the prize. They won the prize that I'm after. And what does that do for me? It inspires me to go out and do better, or try to do better. Do I think, or do you think that you won't fail again tomorrow? Every day's a failure. Realize that. Learn from your mistakes. Do better. God knows you. He knows whether you're greedy. He knows if you have a material desire. He knows these things long before. And does He speak well to these things? Does He give you a way out? Absolutely He does. It's not just a local problem, it's universal. It's not just a now problem, it's been a forever problem. It is not a forever problem in the past. It's not just a forever problem in the past. It evidently is going to be a forever problem in the future. Even if the country doesn't exist like it is right now, the search for wealth and material things is always going to be a problem. You will find some that have it and some that don't. And you'll look at yourself and you'll say, my goodness, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? And then you can always point back to these biblical statements and say, okay, I think that I've still got time to correct this. All right, so he tells him to watch out, guard against greed, because life does not exist in an abundance of possessions. So in summary, man sees a big crop. He considers the situation and he decides, hey, I can fix this problem. And what's the problem with that? He's fixing it for all the wrong reasons. Great example. Really simple story that makes you understand. Is he fixing things for the right problem, for the right reason? What would a reasonable man have done? No. What would a Christian? No. What should a Christian do? That's the word I was looking for. What should a Christian do in this environment? Yeah. If I've got no use for it, if I can't keep it forever, then what am I going to do with it? I'm going to help somebody else out. What will that do for him? It's called goodwill, right? It's not only that. What will you be known as in the community? As a giving Christian. What will that give you an opportunity to do? Spread the word. And in spreading the word, what do you help? You help the rest of the world get better. So the man decides to build bigger barns and he decides to retire. Is retirement a problem? All right, I see this is where we're getting to the hand raising time, right? No, we're not going to. We're not going to get into hand raising because I'm nowhere close, but I'm working on it. Does God fault us for wanting to retire? Not at all. Again, he has not come to me and told me that, but based on what I know about what he wants, retirement is not an issue. For me, retirement is a time that I see many of my brothers take off. And when I say take off, they commit themselves even more than they were during all of their working years to a life with Christ, a life with helping others, a life with doing good, and a life with helping others. When you look at all of those things and you say, was him deciding to retire a bad thing? If he had done it the right way, no, it absolutely would not have been. And God says, look, buddy, I wish you hadn't done that. And because you did, and because your thought process is so backwards, tonight you're going to die. How tenuous is this life that we live in? How many of you know that next time I cross this barrier right here, that it won't be my last time to cross it? We've had a tough week with a Pelham student that passed away that Elisa taught. She remembers them all. The young lady that died down in Gulf Shores on the expressway. One of her friends wrote a post today that was evidently with her or close to her shortly before they parted, and she was in the car accident. And the little girl said, if I had known this was the last time I was going to be able to say goodbye, I would have said it differently. And I ask you, how many of us feel that same way? And then I look at you and say, if I'm living my life right, if I'm doing the things that I need to do, and I get killed, and nobody shoot right now, okay, I'm good. But if it happens to me, what do I want you to do? Clap for me, right? Clap for me and start working to join me. That's where we all should be. That should be our goal. Don't get focused on what I've done. Get focused on what you can do. So man got it wrong. It's not in the abundance of things. And the foolishness and selfishness of man is seen in his mortality. How is it seen in his mortality? How is foolishness seen in man's mortality? Anytime man thinks that he can do something for himself without the help of God, that's just what we're going to refer to as pure foolishness. If we give God the credit, is that a good start? Is it somewhere that we should be? Is it something that we should try to do? Absolutely it is. So riches don't satisfy, and we live in a world of no consideration. It's what I've always referred to as the I, me generation. Do you see a lot of that here in the United States? You really do. You see a ton of it, and you sit there and you think, Lord, don't let me be a part of it. And then I look around and I say, well, maybe I could do better in that regard. We live in a church that is what I would refer as the most giving church that I've ever been a part of. Is that a blessing? Is it a blessing that shows that the focus of our membership is on God? Is it a church that gives the credit to God? Well, I hope and pray that it is. The story gives God no glory. The man that tore down his barns gave God no glory. And when you look at Proverbs 1:16, what shall I return to the Lord for all his goodness to me? What does that heart tell you right there? That's the heart that says, I realize that I have been blessed. Now I need to try to figure out what I need to give back. How many of you tell somebody in the last week, and I really don't want to see your hands, but let me know if I can do anything for you. Is that a common phrase? I'm working myself out of that phrase. And the reason that I am is I am actively, and I see it in this church too, I am actively looking for people that I can help. Why? Nobody's ever going to come back and say, Adam, I need you to do this. But if I can find a way to help somebody, what am I doing? I'm being very godlike in that regard by trying to help somebody. Some people are a little bit stubborn about this kind of stuff. And the ones that I see most often that do this are the people that serve and serve and serve and serve. And then when it comes time that they need something, I can't tell you how many times I've had this conversation. When it comes time that they need something, what's the first thing they do? They hold up. I don't need it. I don't need it. And I've had to have this conversation more than once. I said, look, you give and you give and you give and you give. Now let others that you've helped so much throughout all these years give back to you. Is that a good policy? Now, when I go back to me and instead of let me know if I can help you, I'm actively looking for ways, and I hope we all are, I'm actively looking for ways that I can help others without them having to ask me to do it. Not the easiest thing to do. Yeah, there's a fine line between being the right guy and being the guy that's in the middle. And in the middle is not always where you want to be. Where's your focus? Is it on the self? Is it on yourself? Is it on the world? Or is it on God? In Luke 12:21, this is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich towards God. That's at the end of our parable. And what does that tell you? If your focus is not on God, if you're not doing things for God, then things are not going to turn out well for you. Where's your focus? Is it on the self? Is it on the world, or is it on God? Look at James 4:13 through 16. Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year, carry on business and make money. Why? You do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, you ought to say, if it's the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes. All such boasting is evil. What does that take you back to that I talked about just a few minutes ago? Where should you give the glory? Each and every one of us knows this parable like the back of our hand. And where should you give the glory? Give it to God. He will allow you to give it back. So, rich towards God. Spiritual blessings come through Him. You can see this in Ephesians 1 and 2. And then you can also go back to sell and give alms. It's mentioned right after this parable. And then you can look at what? How many of you know of a better guarantee than heaven? And then you ask yourself, is that the right word to use? I'm not sure it is. I wish it was a warranty. But I'll take warranty or guarantee, either one. But how many of you want heaven as a guarantee? And can heaven be guaranteed for you? This will probably be like the apostles thing that we got into a couple of quarters ago. Can heaven be a guarantee? I'm not seeing near enough Christians bobbing their head. I need some north-south action throughout the entire crowd, okay? Can heaven be a guarantee? Follow the rules, and guess what? There's a lot, the Bible is replete, again, with those things about how heaven can be a guarantee. Is it an easy guarantee? This is where you should go, east-west, right? And why is it not an easy guarantee? There's too many things in life that are reaching out to grab you. If you look at what he told the rich young ruler, go and sell, give it away, and then look at what Paul told Timothy later on. This goes back to that, is money a problem? I think it is, because God sure spends a lot of time telling us about it. Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. Is heaven a guarantee? Can be. It absolutely can be. And I wish I could speak as well as Paul did. He did that in 3 verses, and I've been standing here yammering for 45 minutes. All right. It's not about purchasing a ticket. It's about getting your heart right. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. In conclusion, there's 2 places that we can focus on. One of them is earth. The other one is heaven. If you're still going to focus after all of this, if you're still going to focus on earth, you've missed the point. If you can focus on heaven, then everything else is of little significance. It'll work itself out. I've enjoyed it. I hope y'all have. It's been a good one for me, and I'm going to ask Brother Brian Parker, if he would, to come up here and lead us in a closing prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for another opportunity you've given us to meet to study your word. We pray that you will please be with all those that are dealing with sickness. We have several dealing with cancer. We have those who just had surgeries and are recovering, and other issues. We pray that you will be with all of them, and those that are unable to be with us, that they can be back with us soon. We pray that you will please help us to always focus and take to heart what Adam presented tonight, understanding that everything comes from you, everything is a blessing from you, and we should never lose sight of that or take the opinion that we deserve it or that we've earned it, but that it's truly a blessing from you, and that we understand we are just stewards of that. We are to be good stewards, focused on heaven and using the blessings that you've given us to help those around us when they may be in need, or to be able to use it to help bring more souls to you. We pray that you will be with us now. Bless us as we leave here and watch over us through the rest of this week. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen.